is we're going to be covering 4 different curriculum on God's plan to change us, to change others, and to change our relationships. The purpose of this class, what I'm going to do is, there's actually 2 types of people. Isn't that like every good sermon? In this passage, there are 2 types of people. That's going to be true in this class. There's actually going to be 3 or 4 different groups of people who are simultaneously following different tracks, even though we're going through the same curriculum. The purpose of this class is meant to equip everyone in practical theology, how God can bring change in your own life, how he can then begin to use you to help others change, and how he can transform your relationships to become more pleasing to Christ. One of the greatest desires that we have here at Ambassador Bible Fellowship is that we don't have cold, stale theology, meaning that we just don't have all about correct belief. Our desire is that we have greater love. The goal is to love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. That's the great commandment. That is the fulfillment of the Old Testament and the New Testament is love. That's why it says in 1 Corinthians 13 that if we have faith, we have all these things, but we don't have love, we're nothing. So what we want to do is change. We want to become more like Christ, and the best indicator that we're becoming like him is we're a lover like he's a lover. He was sacrificial in his love. Are we sacrificial in our love? So that's where we're going, is how to become that person that God is calling us to be. In essence, he's calling us to be a disciple of Christ, to follow him and be like him. There is no greater compliment that you can give someone than to be like them, to imitate them. And that's what Paul said, be like me in how I follow Christ. And our prayer is that each of us could be at a place spiritually where we could challenge people to be like us, because that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Many times when I talk with dads in particular, and they're coming with their struggles with their sons in particular, many times I ask them, as Jesus said, when a student is fully taught, he'll be like his teacher. And I challenge Dad, if your son was to become like you, is that a good thing? Is that a good thing? And if not, then what do you need to do as dad to change so that if your son reflects your image, it's a good thing? So that's kind of where we're going, is we want to look at God. Then as we look at his face, look at his word, it's a mirror. Hopefully it reflects back on our heart. The second series that we're going to do is, how do I change to look like him? How do I change? We're going to take 12 weeks to talk about that. And then now that I know how to change, how do I come alongside someone else to help them change? And do it graciously because God was gracious with me. Do it patiently because God was patient with me. And then to look at our relationships. As you've heard me say many times, I was raised in a family where we went to church 3 times a week. Religiously is an understatement. We never missed a week. Even when we went on vacation, we found a church to attend both times on Sunday as we drove. If it was Thursday or Wednesday, we stopped and we attended church somewhere. We didn't even have a vacation from church. We even stayed at pastors' houses in other towns that we didn't know. But we had no relationships in our family that were good. We had horrific relationships. My father never said he loved me until I was 20 years old. That was the first time. My mom and dad used to fight all the time. There were times where I walked in the room when they were screaming and my dad is on top of my mother. Physically on top of my mother, hurting her. My two oldest, my brother and sister, they fought like cats and dogs. When my mom and dad went away somewhere and my oldest sister had to babysit, there were 5 of us. The 3 youngest of us, we went somewhere in the house. Fortunately, we had a big house. We went somewhere in the house where we could get away from the other 2. Why? Because we didn't want to be anywhere around the fisticuffs that would occur when those 2 were even near each other. They couldn't even look at each other without brush fire breaking out. So I was raised in an environment where love was not communicated. I never heard my parents say, "I'm sorry, would you forgive me?" Never heard it. I never saw conflicts resolved. I just saw truces that occurred for periods of time. So that's why the last part of this course will be, how do we change our relationships? What should they look like, and how do we interact? How should the gospel change my relationships? But that's why we want to do this in order, starting with who God is, practical theology. Who am I and how do I need to change? How do I help others change? And then how do God use me to impact the relationships in my life? So that's for everybody in this class of where we're going. But there's a second group that's also a part of this class, and they're those who attended the 30-hour basic training in biblical counseling that we had this past fall. And to finish phase 1 and phase 2 of the ACBC certification, which would prepare them for the supervised counseling, which is the final step before becoming a certified biblical counselor. And so there's going to be 2 parallel tracks occurring at the same time in this class, and I'll explain that further in just a minute. So who's this class for? It's for everybody. Anybody that desires to become a more fruitful disciple and who wants to learn how to disciple. It's a very, very simple principle. You may want to write it in the margin. You can't give away what you don't have. It's just very simple. You can't give away what you don't have. Dad, you can't give and impart to your sons convictions you don't have. You can't give them habits because you're not modeling them. You can't give away something you don't have. And so the key here is first for all of us to ask God to help us become more fruitful disciples of Christ ourselves. And then once I know what to do and how to do it, how do I then learn to disciple others? Why is it important for each one of us in this room to learn how to disciple others?
Because we're commanded to.
Yes, amazing, amazing. The Bible actually says our whole purpose for living, the whole reason the church exists on Sunday, is not for pizzas or great activities. It's to go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey. So if every one of us are commanded to disciple, how can you do what you don't know how to do? That's a very basic question. I don't know about you, but when I was in high school and early in my college single days and even early married men, ladies, you can tune out, but sneak around the corner at this one. I remember as a man, my exasperation when I would hear the pastor preach something that I was supposed to do, and it was like, yes, I believe that, but I have no idea how to do that. And as men, what do we do when we don't know how to do something? We don't do it. We hide, we avoid. How many men love to step up and say, I don't know how to do that? Most men don't have that in their vocabulary. That's why we don't stop at the gas station to ask for directions, right? Of course, now we got GPS, but in the old days, we just keep driving because doggone it, I'm going to figure out. I don't want to tell someone at the gas station, even a stranger, that I have no idea where I am and where I'm going. It's our pride that keeps us from being faithful to God's call in our life. So that's why this series is so important, because this is exactly what we're called to do. We have two great commands. Two. The Great Commandment and the Great Commission. So we're to go and make disciples. How? By loving God and loving others. That's it. That's what this class is going to be about. Those two commands. And so that's what changed my life. And you guys have heard me say it many times. I would hear the preacher preach over and over again what it was I was supposed to do. But no one ever showed me how. No one showed me how to have a devotional life. Nobody showed me how to share my faith. Nobody showed me how to disciple someone else, because nobody had discipled me. I couldn't give away something I didn't have, and I was exasperated by that. That's why here at Ambassador, anything that we value, we must train. If we believe that if God calls us and commands us to do it, He provides a Holy Spirit to give us the means to do it. And then we need training and instruction on how to do it, or you'll be exasperated. That's our bottom line belief and conviction. And our desire is that each of you would not only become disciples, but disciple makers. So that means you need to know how to train someone else how to do it. That's why everything that we want to do is it's a tool. First, you use the tool, and it becomes effective in your life, and then you don't have to invent something. You just take the tool and use it to teach someone else. That's what the 4 spiritual laws was for me. Just a tool. There's thousands of tracts out there for sharing the gospel, but the 4 spiritual laws was one tool that was modeled to me, and then I was able to use and then model with others for many years. A tool. But the mindset is, Lord, help me to first be a disciple, and then I'm called to be a disciple maker. Can I just say this? How would you evaluate your life if you've been a believer for 10, 20, 30 years, and you could not mention one name of someone who is now a disciple maker because of your investment in their life? See, that right there is a good criteria for evaluating success of what you're doing. Could you imagine if Henry Ford said, I'm going to make a car, and I'm going to make an assembly line, but I have no idea what the car is going to look like? We're just going to, everybody get out there, get in the line, all right? And we're just going to wing it. Can you imagine what the end product would look like? You have to start at the beginning with a blueprint. You have to design the process, and then you have to train the workers, and then you have some, oops, not so good products that first come out on the line until you get to the point where you get a good car. Of course, it's painted what color? Black. He says you can make it any color you want as long as it's black. Guys, that's where we're going. Scripture has called us to be disciple makers. And that's all biblical counseling is customized disciple making. All these tools, everything that we will learn and cover here, are simply tools to put in your bag that will help you first to become a more effective disciple, more fruitful, as we see in John 15, as we read last month in our Bible reading. As we're abiding in the vine, we will bear much fruit. And actually that's what the evaluation is, right? If a branch is not bearing fruit, what does he do? He cuts it off, or he needs to prune it. Because the goal is fruit. So if someone's not fruitful, we've got a problem. That's the goal, is not that they're a branch stuck to the vine. The key is that they're bearing fruit. And it's not only the spiritual fruit of Galatians 5, which is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Inside them, what does it say in John 15? What's the fruit he's referring to? That there's many people coming to Christ because of you. Notice, again, I first become a disciple and am fruitful, and then many others are coming to Christ because God is bearing fruit through me. So that's kind of the vision and the goal of this whole series, is to help us be able to disciple, counsel fellow believers, and evangelize the lost that are hurting. By the way, the reason why I have evangelized the lost, and this is a counseling course, is that's the best evangelism tool you'll ever have, is when someone is struggling in their marriage, or a parent is struggling with their child or their teenager, and they come and talk to you with coffee, and what are they going to do? What's the first thing that they're going to do when they sit down? They've got the coffee, you've got your coffee. What are they going to do? Yes, they're going to share their trouble, their difficulty, their need. We call that a counselee. The person then who provides counsel, because what is counsel? Counsel is simply direction, truth, guidance, hope. All of a sudden, a counseling discipleship conversation just started. It just started. And the question is, were you prepared with truth that gives them hope? And based on everything that we know and why we're here this morning, what's the beginning of all hope? Where does all hope stem from? Jesus Christ. So we can't give an unbeliever hope without giving him Jesus. That's what we're going to look at next week, and we do our first lesson is a secular psychologist wants to give them hope, but he doesn't want to give them Jesus. And then you have to ask yourself, is that really hope? What was he given, or her? So that's why evangelism is very important. And by the way, to be a disciple maker, what must happen first? For someone to become a disciple, what must happen first? They have to believe, and become a Christian. So you can't make a disciple without evangelizing. That means you have to know the truth, and that truth that will set them free. So the first truth they need is to surrender to Christ and his authority. Now you have someone to disciple and counsel. So that's why evangelism is such a key component as well. And everything that you'll be learning here is truth, and truth brings hope. You present Christ. As people meet Christ, Christ can transform their life. It's the beginning of all transformation. So the key principle of this class is before the material can equip us. Just realized it's a nice thing about the first time as you go through it, it's like, oh, I got to edit that. Before the material can equip us to effectively disciple and counsel others, it must first change our own heart and transform our own relationships. The most effective counselors, the most effective disciple makers are not the perfect ones. Let me say that again. The most effective disciple makers and counselors are not the perfect ones. By the way, they're the worst. The perfect people are the worst counselors. We all were desperate in our sin. We all have struggles. We all were enemies of God. And we all needed God to intervene in our life and rescue us from ourselves. And that should only bring one attitude, and that's humility and gratitude. And the second a counselor or disciple maker becomes arrogant, forgetting what is true, they become a very ineffective disciple maker and counselor. So that's why the key of this material is to be one who's good at taking the log out of your own eye, and you become then more effective at helping with the speck in others' eyes. So the 4 courses are going to be, the titles of the courses are Practical Theology, which will start next week, How People Change, Helping Others to Change, and we'll be going through the instruments in the Redeemer's hands. And by the way, I have on the table back there copies for $8. If you were to go on Amazon, it's probably $16, $17 plus tax. We have a source where we're able to get books at a cheaper rate on certain ones at different times. And so we have those less expensive there in the back if you would like to read that. The reason why we are going through these books is for those who are doing the ACBC certification, the Practical Theology book is one of the books that's required reading. So it satisfies the certification process requirement. The Instrument in the Redeemer's Hands is probably the best book on counseling, period. That's all I can say. It's the best book you'll ever read. And we're going to be going through that, and it also satisfies the reading requirement for those who want to pursue certification. And so 2 of the 4 are in the on the required reading list for those pursuing certification. So next, what I want to do is talk about what is the process for certification for 2 reasons. One is for those who are actually going through it, so you can ask questions. The other is, should someone who came this morning had no interest whatsoever, but once you see the process, it may interest you, or in the future may be something that you would like to do. So down below, you'll notice the first step, if a person wanted to become a certified biblical counselor with the Association of Certified Biblical Counselors, ACBC, how's that for a mouthful? The first thing is to go through the 30 hours of training. And just so you know, our goal presently is every year in the fall, we're going to be providing that same fundamental training. So anytime you meet someone, know someone, every year you know that you can invite them to come to that basic training. Starting this year, the first of the 3 weekends, we're going to have an advanced track. Our goal is every year, the first weekend, to have an advanced track and a special speaker come in on a particular topic. This year it's going to be Dr. Ernie Baker, one of the professors I had the privilege to learn from, and he's going to do how to resolve conflict. He's a certified biblical conciliator with Peacemakers Ministry. It's an area of specialty that he does. He goes to churches around the country and helps them resolve conflict with individuals and with churches, ministries, organizations that have conflict. That's what he does. And not only is he an adjunct professor, he also is overseeing a biblical counseling ministry at a church in Jacksonville, Florida. So everything that we're wanting to do, he's doing and has done. And by the way, he was a pastor for 28 years, I think. So he's used to everyday local church life. And Dr. Baker is a gracious man, and that's why we wanted to have him come in, is when it comes to conflict, he's a gracious man, and appreciate that. So encourage those of you here to consider attending that if you've already been through the basic training. It'll be that first weekend in September. So after a person has gone through those 30 hours of training, what do they need to do next? What they need to do is they need to watch 10 hours of actual counseling occurring. During the training this fall, I think we saw 2 videos, right? And so there's actually 12 total, and all you have to do is watch 10 of those. We actually have them uploaded, and we're ready to post them online. We just aren't sure what server or service we're going to put them on yet. We're looking into the money behind all that. So hopefully by next week, we'll have that available, and you can actually just start watching those online. You'll have a password to access it. The reason we have to do that is the ministry that created the videos gave us permission that we don't have to charge you, because usually it's $100, but they allow us as a church to post them online as long as we password protect it. So it's important that only you watch those and we don't give it to others. They're okay with us sharing it with those here in our church. So if we could respect them in that regard, it saves us and you money, which is wonderful. And you can do it in the privacy of your home in a time that's convenient for you. All you have to do is log. They actually have you'll notice on the outline there, if you flip over, there's actually a log that I need to email this to you because everything that's underlined, there's actually a link. If I send you the PDF file, you can actually just go to the link, click on it, and it'll take you right to the document online. So this document, the electronic version, actually has every link that takes you to everything. That's why this took forever to put together, but it'll be helpful for you as you use it. So as you watch the video, you just date it and sign that you watched that particular one. Yeah. It'll look like this one.
You have all the classes?
Yes.
Watching those videos in those classes?
Yes. Well, no. My encouragement is those on the side that you're following that pace. What I've done is, yes. And here's my encouragement. I've put it there to give a pace, and also to make sure it's just in front of you that, hey, I need to do these things. But my encouragement is run ahead. Go as fast as you can, because there's a lot of work to be done. And if you want to knock those videos out in 2 weeks, knock them out. In fact, sometimes when you get into it, it's like, man, how does this go? What do they do next? I want to see the next one. And so just going ahead and knock those out. I have them listed there, Mike, just so that you kind of see what needs to be covered and you know what's in each of the videos. And you can kind of go at your own pace. And by the way, if you get behind, it's okay. There's no, we don't click the thing and you have so much time or the bomb's going to go off. This is a process, and each person needs to go at their own pace. Yes, what I'll do is, each of you should be, as I'm looking here, I think each of you are on the list already on Planning Center, which is the database we use as a church. Does everyone have the app on their phone, Church Center? All right, let's do this. Grab out your phone. Grab your phone, and if you have, what's the Google Store? Is that what it's called? Play Store. Or for Apple, it's called what? App Store. So go there and look up Church Center. I believe that's correct, Church Center. Yes, Church Center app, and it has like a blue and a green church with a little circle at the top. You see that? You want to download that app real quick. Church Center app, just download that. Since we're all doing it now, it's going super slow. Everybody got that? So once you open the app, what does it ask you? Yeah, it says find your church. So what it's going to do is it's going to show you all the churches that are within like a 15-mile radius. So go through, what does it ask you to do to find it?
Turn on your location setting.
Yeah, okay. Turn on your location setting, and it'll actually give you, 10 or 15 churches here in the area.
It's like the first one.
Oh, we're the first one that came up. How about that? Well, geographically, you're kind of close to dead center. You are in the right place. So just click on that logo there. It says Ambassador Bible Fellowship, the little diamond right here. There you go. And then it'll ask, I believe, for your cell phone number. And when you put in your cell phone number, it will match the cell phone number you've already given us. So it'll match, yes, we know who you are. So if you do that real quick, then what will happen is your personal profile will come up. And if you're already in this class, Elaine, I think I don't have you yet in the class listed. If you're not sure if you're listed in the class, let me know. I'll make sure that you are. What you do is you click on that class, and then it'll say resources. And what I'll do is I'll put this document on there, and then you can download this resource as the PDF. Oh, okay, is it on there already? Actually, I need to update it because it's the old one. So I just did a bunch of revisions on it. So wait like 2 or 3 days, Mike, and I'll update and get the right document up there, and then you can download it. Wonderful. Had no idea today was going to be a phone app day. So, you watch the 10 videos, and we'll get the, and the other reason why we want your name in this group is then I can correspond email with you, and I can just say, hey, here's where you go, here's the link to go see the videos, here's the password, and then it'll be real easy to just communicate with everybody in the class. The second thing is, after observing the videos, and by the way, you can be doing any and all of these at the same time, totally up to you how you want to do it. There's 1,000 pages of theology and counseling that you need to read. I've listed the recommended reading books. There's a link that you can actually go see all the books that you can read. I've listed below here the ones that I would recommend. And I would just say, I would circle. You'll see how people change. And Instrument in the Redeemer's Hands, those are 2 of the classes that we're covering. And then you'll also notice that up above, Theology of Biblical Counseling, that's the first one we're going to do. So 3 of the books that you need to read, we're going to be covering. Okay? So that's, that way you don't have to duplicate some of that work. And the links that are with each of those is how you can go to Amazon or wherever I linked it to purchase those books. Many of the books have a Kindle version, if that's of interest to you. Some prefer the electronic copy. So, after you've done the reading, gone through the material, you've watched the videos, the next phase is there are exams. And what those are for is to cause you fear and anxiety so that you would read the book on fear and anxiety. Just to see as a test, how's it working? No, the tests are all open book, meaning and in fact, I will give you actually what books to read and what pages to read to come up with the right answer for each question. You are not going to have to go out in the universe wondering, where do I go to find the answer for this? I'm going to tell you right here. Read these 10 pages in this book, and that's going to give you what you need. Will help you immensely. Page and a half, double space, answer is what they're looking for. And what we will do for those who are wanting to pursue the certification, we're actually going to have 2 classes where I'm going to show you how those exams should look. I'm going to actually read to you answers that were satisfactory by the examiners. I'm going to pick some questions that they no longer use and then say, hey, here's what an answer looks like. Here's how an answer is formatted. This is what it looks like. And so that's what we'll be doing there. We don't want to send you out with no idea where you're going and how to get there. We want to hold your hand the whole way through so that everyone that desires can be successful. And by the way, when you hand in your answers to be graded, you can do it 100 times. And they will always say, you know what, work on this on number 5, work on that on number 8. It doesn't matter how many times you did it. The key is, do you finally get it and understand it? That's all that matters. The purpose of the exams is it forces you to think it through yourself and to articulate it. What do I believe about this? And then they give you scenarios. So how do I take those concepts and apply that concept to this part of life? Here's why that's important. Most of us don't do that in our own life. Most of us believe that God is sovereign and in control and He's a good God, and yet we grumble and we have ulcers. True? My box of Tums is right there and I need a refill, supersized. Costco, thank you. Right? So we know the right answer, but when it comes to application, we struggle. It's something that we all struggle with. And so the reason why the exams is helping, and honestly, I'll just tell you this. I have had many things in my own life where God shined a light that I didn't see. It was a blind spot, because what's the principle? We're always blind to our own blind spots. The light was shown on my life because I was helping someone else and their blind spot, and for some reason I saw their blind spot. And then I went, oh, that's so familiar. Why is that so familiar? I do that. Can I tell you, helping others, God has used that to change me. It really has. That's why we're starting with theology. What you believe does dictate what you counsel. It dictates what you counsel. And by the way, here's why to be an effective counselor, you must be a man or woman of faith and obedience. Would you counsel someone to do the hard job of obeying a difficult spouse when you don't? It's hard. Hey, hang in there. You should work on that. In fact, you know you're kind of rebellious when you're fully rebellious. It's going to be hard to have that conversation with a clear conscience. And the tendency is, as a counselor, we avoid the obvious things in front of us when it's too close to home. That's where, you know what, I got to go take care of some business so I can help you, because I'm not doing very well in that area myself. That's why this is purifying for everybody. The whole process is purifying for everybody. That's why my statement on this, and I'll hold to it, I'll stick to it, and it's my final answer. You will change more going through this process than any time in your life. Why? Because it puts you through a knothole of what do I believe and do I actually do it? And now you have to put it on paper and evaluate yourself. It is absolutely humbling. And I know what it did for me, and I'm forever grateful. Forever grateful. There are 20 counseling exams, and they include how you would handle 3 sample cases. The online application, and it tells you kind of what to do to fill out there for that. Don't need to go through those details. And then if you get to the last page, then once you've fulfilled all that, you've finished your exam, they passed, you've done all your reading observation, then you actually will find a supervisor who will actually oversee you as you do 50 counseling sessions. You write a case report for each one. Hey, what's the issues? What's the hard issues? And what's the homework that I'm going to give to help them work through those hard issues and to change? And then you have a phone conversation with your supervisor 50 times. And trust me, you change more going through the supervised counseling than your counselees do. Because when you're on the phone with your supervisor, you go, I have no idea what to do. Where do we go? What do we do? I don't know what to do. Okay, calm down. You can do this. It forces, again, a lot of things in your life. In your supervised counseling, you'll be, the supervisor is a fellow, meaning they're a certified counselor who's reached a whole nother level of skill and experience. And they go through a grueling process to become a fellow. Only fellows can supervise. And most of them are not local, so they won't know you and they don't know your counselees. And so you're very candid with him about what's going on, because how can he help you if he has no idea what's going on? Yeah. No. Yes. And you have to have, it's changed, and so I don't know. I know when I did it, we had to have 3 audio recorded sessions and 2 video, because it's amazing what you see when, it's like, do you realize you growl when you're comforting your counselee? They're crying and you're growling. Did you notice that? It's amazing what you pick up when you actually hear it audio recorded, and it's really amazing what you pick up when your face, how do you present yourself? There's much to be learned there. So so I think it's 5 total of the 50 have to be recorded. So what you do is you send it to the counselor, your supervisor first, so he's prepared when he meets with you. And since he's very experienced, he asks how it's going, what the issues are, and many times they are able to put a finger on something that you don't see by just simply asking questions, and by the answers you give, it's like, and this is what you'll find is you're pulling the top of the weed, and he's like, the root's down here. You missed it. This is the root. Because remember, to get that weed out, got to get the root. And so they can be very helpful. So, and then goes from there. I'll let you read that there for the rest of the process for those who are desiring certification. Any questions on the certification process for those who are looking at that? And by the way, at any time, if you decide, hey, you know what, I want to pursue that, there is no time limit. It's completely up to you and the pace that you do it. At the church, our sending church, there was a woman who went to the 30 hours counseling, had no idea she was interested in counseling. In fact, my relationship with her was very minimal. And she was a Sunday school teacher, had been a Sunday school teacher with her mother for 30 years. Her and her mom did Sunday school every ding-dong Sunday for 30 years. They were amazing. And all of a sudden, she went to the counseling training that we did, and a light bulb went out. She was an empty nester, so she had no kids at home, and she's like, this is what I always wanted to do. She didn't even tell anybody. She just went and got certified all on her own, did it in a year. Total speed marathon. This woman's dedicated. Of course, she had 2 black belts, you know, for a 65-year-old woman. I thought that was pretty cool. And she still works out. But highly committed woman, and she's very effective. She's very effective. She serves the church, counseling like 3 or 4 single women usually a week. Very, very amazing woman. As you look at the schedule, here's what's on there is, you'll notice there's kind of the 2, there'll be the date, what class it is. I'm going to start the first couple weeks on the theology, and then I'm handing that baton to Vincent, and it's going to be all his. And after that, we're going to team all together, Vincent, myself, and Thomas. And it's got my name on all those, but I'll be the happiest person when my name's not on all those. But we're going to go through those 4 classes. This will let you know what to read before you come. You will get more out of this class if you do the reading beforehand. Because our goal is we want to do an overview of the main points, but we want to talk about how do we apply the principles that you've read. So the more you put into it, it'll be more that you get out of it. And so the assignments are there, what to read. And then on the right, you'll notice the ACBC certification content. I've listed each of the videos if you were to do 1 a week, the time frame. And again, you could knock those out in 2 weeks and go on ahead and get started on other things as well. I encourage you to go on ahead and get started on the reading, the 1,000 pages that you choose that you want to do. And then you'll notice starting in, if you look at the top of the second page, in June 14th. June 14th, there'll be, between books, we'll take 2 weeks off for everybody. But those who are wanting to pursue the certification, those 2 weeks are crucial. If you could circle those, you want to make sure to be there. Because that's when we're going to go through how to write the essays and the exams. And you'll notice on the assignment, you'll actually want to, by the second meeting that we have, you'll actually do a first draft and then do a second draft. Because the first one, it's going to take a little bit to get used to being familiar with the process. And then you're off to the races of just working on each of the questions. And so what I did is I've written out the question, I've summarized it so it fit. Some of them are longer. Yeah, Becky? Yeah, no, that's okay. Yes. Yes, I'll have the books here, or you can buy them yourself, or... Yes. No. You will just, and I would encourage, again, you don't have to purchase the book or read it. My preference would be is that you would, just so that you get more out of it, and it becomes a tool for you to refer back to in the future and to use for others in the future as well. I've got copies in the back. So I've got 10 copies, and if we run out today and we need more, I'm more than happy. Amazon is now, we're on that particular one, is 1 day shipping. We must have a warehouse closer. And so I'd be more than happy to get those. So it's both. We will encourage everyone to read the chapter beforehand, and we will have handouts that we will give each time. So kind of be at both ends. Yeah, no, great question. Yes, the question was, if you're just taking the class and not doing the counseling certification, what do you need to read? And so if you took the sheet and just took the 4 left columns, that would be all that applies to those who are just taking the class for the class content, is the 4 columns on the left. Yeah. So that's why I want to put it all in one place rather than have all these different sheets, and then it's easy to get confused where everything goes. So I'm sorry if it looks complicated and overwhelming. Hopefully it's actually simplifying it for you. But if at any time you have questions, please let me know. And by the way, if there's anyone that you know that you think would really enjoy this class, we actually start next week. So they didn't miss that much. And you could explain to them kind of where we're going with the resources, and because it'll be posted online, you could send them a link and they could download it. Any questions? Already got to read the first chapter, and I'm excited. Heath Lambert, just so you know, in this first book, Heath Lambert used to be the president of the Association of Certified Biblical Counselors. So he's a very competent, very capable biblical counselor himself. And if you were to read his personal story, in fact, I encourage you, I think if you go to the ACBC website and put in Heath Lambert's testimony, I believe there's a video of it. He was actually beaten and sexually abused his whole upbringing by his mother. He was a devastated, broken man. And the gospel transformed his life. And it's the truth of the theology that has changed him, is he knows who his God is. He knows what he has done for him, and the hope that he has in Jesus of being a new creation now, free of sin in the future. He's a professor of theology and biblical counseling at Southern Seminary, and he's also a senior pastor of that church where Dr. Baker is the biblical counseling coordinator. The church that Dr. Baker is at is pastored by Heath Lambert. And so when Heath took this position, stepped down as president, he asked Dr. Baker to be the guy to start his ministry of biblical counseling. The church he's at is a Southern Baptist church in Jacksonville that was one of the largest in the United States. But over years, it began to implode. And it went, as they say, the ship was going awry. And they asked him to come in and turn the ship around. And that's what they've been doing. And that's why he brought Dr. Baker in and said, every one of their staff, by the end of this year, I think, will be certified biblical counselors. And I think they have 40 staff. That's Dr. Baker's job, is to make sure every staff member is certified. Their goal is they want everybody certified in biblical counseling. Why? That's disciple making. That's disciple making. Let me pray for us.